Hello, all you freaks out there. This is Ryan, and I am here coming at you live from the Freakin Austin Paranormal Studios here in lovely Mechanicsville, Virginia. Hope everyone's having a good night. I went to Texas Roadhouse for dinner with Angie and the kids. And let's just say I hit the wall and I kept going. And now I am stuffed. You ever go someplace and you eat, but you get full and you get full, but you keep eating because the food is so good? That was my problem tonight. And then we went to Cold Stone Creamery and we're going to put a milkshake on top of all that. So, yeah, you ever just... The first thing I wanted to do when I got home was go to bed. But I can't do that because I can't sleep and host a show at the same time. I've tried it, but I just can't do it. I have RJ calling me right now. He can come in here if he needs me. Yeah, so RJ is calling for me. So I'm going to go see what he wants. I will be right back. Oh, no, I don't remember that one. I'll be right back, okay? I gotta do my show. All right. Ooh. Sorry. What? It's not live on Facebook for some reason? Well, I know I'm live because it says to go end stream. Let's bring Sarah on. She's the founder and one of the investigators of Pungo Paranormal. Let's bring Sarah Hall Hayes onto the show. Well, hello.
Hi.
What you gotta do it?
Hello.
Well, hello.
Howdy.
How is everything going with you?
It's going well. We moved into our new room. As you can tell,
Nice.
there are clothes behind me.
That's very cool.
So, yeah, I'm very excited.
I didn't know you were moving into a new room. That's exciting news.
It is very exciting. It's my little bohemian oasis.
Oh, this is cool. So now you got your own little freaking awesome studio going on over there now.
Yeah.
That is
I'm very
awesome.
excited.
That is so cool. Well, I feel bad. I honestly do. Because I'm not getting into the holiday spirit.
Oh no. What holiday?
I'm actually doing something. And today is National Nothing Day. I really should just be sitting here like this. Doing nothing. But I just don't have the holiday spirit, apparently, because here we are doing something, ruining National Nothing Day for everyone.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. Where's our holiday spirit?
Yeah. Where's it at?
Exactly.
I mean, I could have done nothing today, but then I would have gotten nothing done.
Yeah, well, you've been a perfect day just to sit there and do nothing because that's what you're supposed to do today. But I was all over the place. I mean, I was here, there, I was everywhere. I did wash my car, went to dinner, took RJ to the doctor, had to pick up Kimmy from school. I've been like, dude, it's National Nothing Day. I should be at home.
Doing nothing.
Doing nothing. But
what am I doing with my life right now?
I know. What's the meaning of our lives? I guess we didn't. Sometimes holidays come, you don't feel the holiday spirit, and that must be that must be what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. So, anywho, I gotta give a paranormal shout out to Idaho Paranormal Truth Seekers, our good friends in Idaho. I bet
Hey,
I
friends.
don't know anybody in Idaho.
I didn't even know it was a state until recently. I'm just kidding. I'm just, I'm
Oh
just
my god.
kidding.
It's they're just kind of there
Your
in the middle of the
face.
country.
You were like, what?
Yeah, Idaho. Idaho is a thing. Anywho, our brand new state, Idaho. Oh my god. We need to get them on the show because I never talked. I don't think I've ever talked to anybody from Idaho.
I want to know what goes on in Idaho besides making and growing potatoes.
That's what the thing. I'm like, that's all I know think about is potatoes. I'm like, is that all they do?
Like, what goes on in South Dakota and North Dakota? You literally hear nothing
Yeah,
about
what?
those states. And Idaho, North
I
Dakota,
mean,
South Dakota. They just are just sipping their own tea, minding their own business, watching the world burn
sipping
around
their
them.
potato tea.
So
Well,
weird.
one of the Dakotas has. I'm stupid for not knowing this, but it's National Nothing Day. So I should know nothing now. Idaho was a state. I think one of them has the Mount Rushmore. I'm not sure if it's North or South Dakota. I always get those confused
I think it might
because
be
there's
South
such. I mean,
Dakota. North
literally, I
Dakota?
don't
Oh,
know.
no.
Besides Mount
Let me look it
Rushmore,
up.
I don't know the difference between the two. Which is, again, we love our viewers and listeners from South Dakota and Idaho or North Dakota too. So if you guys are from there, just let us know how stupid we are, and we appreciate your knowledge. What's up, Lisa?
Where's it at?
What's
South
up,
Dakota.
CR?
It is in
Which
South
one? South
Dakota.
Dakota has Mount Rushmore. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there we go. All right, we love our friends in South Dakota and North Dakota. So, in honor of our esteemed guest we have on tonight, John Pagano, I
I'm
looked
so
up
excited.
since it was cold outside, I looked up 17th century slang. All right. I'm not sure if they use this in Virginia or not, but all of a dutter. I was all of a dutter to the dutter. Dudder means to be shivering and shaking.
Shut up.
So yeah.
I'm
So if you were all
duttering
of a
right
dutter
now.
today, which I was, it's kind of cold outside. I was definitely all of a dutter today. I was shivering and shaking. So I want you to start using that word. Like to use that phrase when you get cold. You're like,
I'm all of a dutter. I'm gonna
I'm
use
all of a
that
dutter
at
today.
the cabin.
Hello. We're gonna bring back some 17th century slang here.
We are. Please wear your
Back to
wig.
the 21st century, yo.
The white
Oh yeah,
girl
don't
wig.
forget to go check out Energy Ripple. Again, that lady's the girl who had her house burned down
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago. She definitely needs all her help, and just go check it out. Give her a like, buy something if you can. If not, just spread the word. That's what we do.
I do want to say I checked out her website and I bought a few crystals from her. Like that website is amazing.
That's awesome.
She's
I
got
saw some
so
cool
many
T-shirts.
things.
I thought I might grab
Mm-hmm.
when I get the money to do such a thing.
So definitely check out her website. You might see something that you like, and it's going for a good cause.
If not, just share it, and I'm sure somebody else will.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody else will. So our guest, John Pagano, is the Historical Interpretation Supervisor at Henricus Historical Park in Chester, Virginia. He is also an accomplished author. His book, The English Pocahontas, 10 Essential Questions, is a must for any history lover. History lover. No, I said historic. A historic history lover. So yeah, I'm excited to be talking with John. Let's bring him on the show. What is up, man? How are you?
Hey, friend.
Folks.
Oh, we are doing good.
Yeah, it's past my bedtime. I don't know. I think I'm gonna say dutter and mutter and futter. Hello, mutter.
Mutter, dutter, futter.
Hello. Futter.
I'm hella flutter and muttering
I'm
right now.
feeling thy futter shudder. Wait, what is it? Dutter. Feeling
All of a
dutter.
dutter. All of a dutter. So if you're cold, you're shivering, like if you're like on an investigation, it's 30 degrees outside, you'd be like, oh, I'm all of a dutter.
I'm all of a dutter.
See, I just thought that was the male version of someone who failed all the time was a dutter, and a woman who fails all the time is a dudess. Is that not? That's not true.
Well, apparently from a 17th century slang website I went to, I mean, I'm not an expert. I'm pretty much just copying what I saw on the internet.
I mean,
And
you're the
you know that's
expert
not
here,
true.
John.
I just know that women didn't shave under their armpits and men had lots of.
Ew.
They were smelly.
What other fun facts do we want to know tonight?
There we go.
Everything.
So before we get into the topic at hand, I heard you had some interesting stuff happen this past weekend at the park to go along with the show we had before at the end of the month at the end of December.
What
Yeah,
happened?
that's right.
I want to know.
Okay, I'll tell you. It goes back to our Christmas event, and my friend Mark and I were sleeping in the hospital, and I woke up maybe once or twice. You're sleeping in kind of a strange place, and you wake up, there's candle lights around you, and that kind of thing. But when I woke up in the morning, Mark said to me that at some point in the night, he distinctly saw somebody walk past him. And he found it very curious because they made no noise on the hardwood floor, right? And he said that he opened his eyes up again and he saw that person sitting in front of the lit fire, warming themselves. And they were wearing a Civil War cap and vest and that sort of thing. So it's really interesting because this past weekend, one of my friends, Tim, him and I and another were sleeping in the ordinary by the fireplace. And I woke up in the morning and Tim said that he saw someone walk past him and set up by the fireplace warming themselves. And to add to that, hours before, one of our reenactor guests, his name's not important, but his family migrated here from El Salvador, and he was in tears in the ordinary talking to me and others because he was walking through the site before the event was going, and he said that a United States colored troops soldier, a black soldier, had been right by him and actually gestured to him. And when he came up to me later and asked others, hey, who is the USCT guy here? And I was like, we don't have any USCT people here at this event. He was like a different color. His face was like all, kind of sweaty and pale from the fact that he saw such a vivid spirit that was lifelike. And the thing that's really interesting is that my friend who does a union reenactor, he's Latino, but if you kind of saw him, in a different light, he has very curly dark hair. His skin is a bit dark, and you might pass him off as a USCT in the modern day.
Mm-hmm.
So I find it interesting that a USCT spirit had this one guy that he emerged to and gestured to. And so funny enough, the same guy and one of the ladies from that group, they sent me a picture the other day from the event, and it was the two of them walking down the road to the to Rock Hall from the Plantation House. And in the distance, past them, you see a very strange looking figure that's just standing there with their head down, looking at an unlit fire pit and just standing there looking at it. And what's really interesting is that he told me that moments after that picture was taken is when he saw that ghost of the USCT.
Oh my God.
You know what's funny?
Holy crap.
When Howie and I were going into the God, I forgot the name of the house, or it was like a small house right in front of where the church is.
Yeah.
The quartermaster, I think, may have been. We were in there talking to the guy, and a family came in, and they were from El Salvador, right?
Yeah.
And they said that they found this place, they found Henricus by accident by making a wrong turn. And they ended up at Henricus. So it's funny how your friend is from El Salvador and his family's from El Salvador. And it was just a complete
that's really interesting.
coincidence.
And you wouldn't have anybody from El Salvador on your radar for the longest time, just like you don't have anybody from Idaho on your radar until
exactly.
Tonight.
We're gonna fix that though. One of these days we'll have Idaho on the show. But that's an very interesting chain of events, and just makes me want to get out there.
Yeah, the lady who was with that particular gentleman in the photograph that I sent you, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
She's a reenactor from Pittsburgh, and she said this is before she's never been here before at Henricus, and she was talking to me around the same time about the stories this guy had, and she said that earlier in the day she went upstairs in Rock Hall and had a choking fit and couldn't get her breath because she was feeling so pressured from whatever was in there.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. I had the same thing happen to me during one of the tours in the church. It was the last tour I was there, just kind of checking it out. In the middle of the story and stuff, I couldn't stop coughing for some reason. It came out of nowhere. I almost got to the point where I had to leave. Luckily, I was able to control it, but yeah, it was pretty bad.
Wow.
But I love to get more into the paranormal stuff, but since that was the last show, let's go back. I want to learn more about the establishment of the colony. I think it's something that, a lot of people know about Jamestown, but they don't really know what happened after that. They kind of go into more of the, George Washington, James Madison, that kind of, or French and Indian War type of thing. They kind of skip over the founding of Henricus. Can you give us an idea of what life was like in Jamestown and what would cause them to want to move down the James River into hostile territory, so to speak?
Sure. It's important to mention that when we're talking about Jamestown or Henricus, we have to set up a very important outcome first. For anyone who's watching and listening, the United States as we know it today is not a sure bet in the year 1611. There is so many things that were going to doom this English colony, and that if that English colony fails, you cannot have a United States with a failed England in North America. It's not going to happen. So what you have in 1607 at Jamestown is the equivalent of someone setting up a family restaurant somewhere in Mechanicsville who needs some help with getting that business set up, and they bring in anybody and anyone that can help set that business up. And that's the Virginia Company of London. It's got a charter from the king, but it doesn't have much money at all. It has old creaky ships, a one-armed sea captain named Captain Christopher Newport, a Captain John Smith, who is basically just this guy who is the best they can get to be kind of a mercenary soldier to head that part of the team, right? They have all these pieces in play. And of course, the generations of gentlemen they bring here, everything fails. You know, there's so little success at Jamestown, 1607 through 1609. And when John Smith leaves, of course, the Powhatan leadership is just like, well, that's the only guy we respected anyway. So they are going to choke out the English. And that's the starving time at Jamestown. So what you have basically is just a failed Jamestown. And we know the results of the starving time. They're going into the graves and they're picking up corpses and they're eating from the corpses there, right? We know that. So I want you to imagine what John Smith and any survivors who are going back to England, what they're saying about this colony. And the thing that they're saying is that the leadership is not working, the colony is failing, and everyone will probably be dead when we go back over there again. So obviously by 1610, there are people who are in England, investors and members of the Virginia Company, who are like, you know, we have got to bring people to that colony who will turn the whole ship around and go the right direction. So that is going to be someone that I never heard of, you never heard of, most people never have heard of. And that's the operating secretary of the Virginia Company. His name is Edwin Sandys. Sandys is the guy who recruits the major players to come to the colony. But they need oomph. They need somebody who is going to be the, the big name. Because King James is just like, look, I gave you my permission, but it's all up to you. So Prince Henry, the heir to the throne, he has a former bodyguard, someone who watched after him when he was a boy, who is going to take over Virginia and get it going. And that's going to be Sir Thomas Dale. Sir Thomas Dale is the kind of guy that is the 17th century version of Darth Vader. And when you are someone like Sir Thomas Dale and you show up on records as this infantry sergeant fighting the Spanish, and apparently you're so good at doing that and killing Spaniards that someone's like, well, we got to promote him to an officer, and he gets that. He's so good at killing Spaniards, apparently, that with his commission to officer, somebody takes notice of that in Stirling Castle, where James is and where his son Henry is, and apparently Dale gets to be living in the household of the future King of England and being some type of mentor bodyguard.
Wow.
Now, I want you to imagine what kind of man is pulled from the trenches to be a bodyguard to an heir to the throne.
Yeah. He has to be really good.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that service to the prince, King James knights Sir Thomas Dale, and that comes to be. And so when someone like a king knights you, you do what the king and his monarchy says to do. Next thing you know, Sir Thomas Dale is now going to Virginia, and with him, Edwin Sandys is going to recruit this prodigy minister whose father was a legend in the starting of Puritanism in England, and that is Reverend Alexander Whitaker, whose father was someone who wrote, 36 books and tracts that were solely against what he calls the papacy, which is the leadership of the Catholic Church. One of those books in Latin is basically the title of "The Pope is the Antichrist."
Jeez.
So that will be Reverend Whitaker's father, will be the head of religion at Cambridge. And that Whitaker, Alexander, goes to his father's college of religion at Cambridge. And at 28 years old, him and a 40-year-old Sir Thomas Dale will be coming to Virginia together in 1611 to fix the failing English colony. So those two guys arrive at Jamestown in May of 1611. So that's setting this up. That's setting up the foundation of what we're going to probably move on to, which is Henricus. So I don't know if there's any questions you guys have before I get going on the next.
Now, is it true that when they founded Jamestown, they just sent mostly like rich people that didn't know what they were looking? They were looking for gold, or they didn't send the right kind of people to start a colony.
Yeah, the Virginia Company of London was purely set up as a temporary joint stock company to come to the New World and to see if they could make relations with the natives that were here in order to have a unfettered ability to collect some of the stuff that would give them money from nature. So that could be gold, could be things in the woods, could be minerals. So the way they saw things and what the king wanted in his charter was, I don't want you going to this colony and starting a war with the Indians, so I don't have a dead colony and a bad reputation for chartering you.
Hang on just one second. How close was like Jamestown and Roanoke colony? Like, was it Jamestown was after Roanoke? How many years after Roanoke was Jamestown?
Yeah, it's going to seem really a long time, but we're talking, over 20 years to 25 years in this time frame.
All right. I'm sorry, Sarah. I just want to get that question.
Okay. Yeah.
I was going to ask something about Jamestown. Jamestown was established before Henricus?
Right. So Jamestown is May of 1607, and Sir Thomas Dale arrives in Virginia in the spring of 1611. And within 3 months, he is going to not only come to Jamestown, fix that place. He is going to consolidate everything in the colony, including his rank structure, all the people here. And what he's going to do is ask the leadership, who are the tribes that are actually causing strife with us? And those tribes Dale went after. The tribes that did not go after the English, Dale said, essentially, we are going to go back to them, secure their alliances and trade, and make sure we keep them as friends. He does that almost like he read John Smith's playbook when he was over in England. And when he comes here, within so much time, he's going after the Nansemondis, which live on the Nansemond River and what's down past, between Smithfield and Suffolk. That's their. He defeats them, comes back, and he comes up to what's now Richmond, scouts out the area, and he decides he's going to put a fort on what is now the Henricus settlement. And he scouts that out, goes back to Jamestown, and for a few months, his guys are prepping the materials to come up and build a fort. I will give you a little idea of who Dale is, Darth Vader himself. We've all heard of Captain Christopher Newport, right? Most people have. They're in Virginia, certainly. I mean, Newport's a badass. Newport has one arm. Why does Newport have one arm? Because he lost his arm in a naval battle with the Spanish. Dale goes up to him in front of everybody at the fort at Jamestown, grabs Newport by the beard, yanks him to the ground, and says that Newport and his mariners, sailors, are going to do just as much work as everyone else. And that's pretty much sums up Dale in a nutshell. So Dale also is going to send word to Powhatan. Hey, man, I respect you. I know you're the leader here. I'm going to send you a notice, communication. I'm going to build a fort upriver, and I'm hoping we can get along. I'm hoping we can make this work. But if you are not so willing, then I'm going to throw my gauntlet down, and you're going to have to come after me, and we'll see what happens. So Powhatan gets that word. Dale's going to have about 300 men going upriver to build Henricus. Purposely sends 2/3 of those men on foot on the 70-mile trek and takes the rest by ship. And that force that's on land actually has to go through several gauntlets of Indian attacks And without interruption, they make it to what we know as Henricus in September of 1611, still being chased down by the war leader that Powhatan sends against them, which is this Indian by the name of, well, the English call him Jack of the Feathers. His Powhatan name was Nimatano. Jack of the Feathers wears swan feathers over his entire body so he can be seen in battle. So
He wants to stand out.
That's right. And he told his warriors before his first fight with the English that no English bullet would ever be able to kill him.
I remember hearing that.
So what you have is basically September into October, Dale had the foresight to cut out most of the fort at Jamestown, make the materials at Jamestown, put them on ships. So when the ships arrive at Henricus, what they have to do is unload the walls of the fort and put them up. And they're going to be doing that while they're being raided by Indians.
Jeez.
So,
That's
I mean,
crazy.
kind of like out of the frying pan into the fire
Right.
type of thing.
Yes. So that's Dale in a nutshell. Dale basically is taking John Smith's playbook and running with it. He knew that he had to communicate with Powhatan. He was being diplomatic, and when Powhatan did not see eye to eye with Dale's diplomacy, Dale said, "Well, I'm going to do this, and if you need to stop me, send your best men."
Come at me, bro.
Were they attacking them with bows and arrows and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Like,
yep.
That's crazy.
So that goes on. The fort walls are built. The church is built. Some warehouses, but most of the men the first winter live in sunken in holes in the ground that they throw tents over, and it won't be until the following year that most of the houses will be built at Henricus. While that's going on, and Dale's men have to go in the woods for more wood and more resources, the Appomattox Indians, who are south of the James River, are now attacking any of Dale's men that go far from the fort. Anytime you go out to chop wood or use the outer privies, they would shoot arrows at you while you had your pants down, that kind of thing.
oh my gosh.
So Dale basically says, okay, well, look, my policy is if you attack us, I'm coming after you. And the following winter, he takes his men and he goes after the Appomattox and drives them forever west of what's now Petersburg, and they won't ever return.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. I mean, that kind of makes me feel bad about complaining when I'm cold walking to my car
Right.
in the morning. These guys living in holes. And I mean, and you know, I'm assuming the clothes they had weren't exactly the warmest things in the world, because you know, back then, I mean, it's like you get what you came with.
Yeah.
You know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the thing with Dale's guys that are up there, it's really interesting with Dale might have brought some men from Europe with him, not too many, but some. But the core of the men that were here in the colony already were experienced Indian fighters. And Dale is going to turn those guys over to Captain Edward Brewster. This Brewster is the same family as the Brewsters that settled Plymouth up in Massachusetts. The one thing I want everybody to keep in mind with this story is that everybody who we're going to bring up are all evangelical. They're all, John Rolfe is, obviously Whitaker is, Dale is, and there is a new movement from England that believes that the failures in Virginia are attributed to the fact that they have lost their godliness. And they are trying to not only return stability, they are believing that stability comes with godliness. And that means the martial laws that Dale edited and made sure that they were published in 1612. It says specifically in there, you are in church 15 times a week. The first time that you do not attend you're going to lose your rations for 24 hours.
Oh my God.
The second time you don't attend church, you'll probably either be branded or have a bodkin hammered through your tongue. And for the third time, you're going to be executed.
Oh my God.
So when we're looking at somebody like Sir Thomas Dale and his time in leadership, he is very Darth Vader-like.
Yeah, so like the church
So
would be considered like the dark side of the Jedi Force type thing.
That's right. Yeah, I mean it's interesting because I don't think we examine enough the time period when the Powhatan Indians feel like things are going bad. They blame it that they're not praying to the sun enough. Mm-hmm. They will go out and they'll pray and sing and make offerings to the sun more and more and more. The English do the same exact thing. If things are failing, things are not working, they believe that their people are going to the devil and they've got to try to get them back into church more.
Yeah, it was like the people who sacrifice in the South America, the tribes that sacrifice people because they thought it would help, help it rain and help the crops and stuff. It's all the same, all different ways of doing it, but all the same result.
That's a good way to look at it, though, to make it make more sense.
So what kind of person was Alexander Whitaker? Like, as a man, what kind of person was he?
Well, his dad was married twice. His mom died when he was young, and he was raised in a family with multiple siblings, a sister Susanna, and I think Whitaker was, when your father is a legend, was a legend in the church, and you're a clergy, you really got to figure out where you stand, but you don't want to stand with vanity, because vanity is considered akin to sin with that group of theologians. So you got to be very careful that you want to make a name for yourself, but you have to be really precise on who you and where you attribute that success to. And if you read Whitaker's letters, what he believes is that the English in Virginia is God's work. Dale is an instrument of God's work. Whitaker is the mouthpiece of God's work. And what he believes is that if they're truly doing God's work here in Virginia, well, the native people are also the children of God, and that what has been done wrong so far with many of the people's perspectives in England and through the Virginia Company is that they're not treating the natives as equals in the eyes of God. And that's upsetting to God. So he is going to try to set the record straight. He writes letters back to England saying, quote, "The Powhatans have reasonable souls and intellectual faculties as well as we." So he goes on record to say that they are our equals, and we need to start working towards a bond that will make us together future Christians and countrymen together. And that will introduce the concept of what will be a happenstance, which is Pocahontas's conversion.
So, I hate to ask all the questions here. So, does you have anything that you want to add, Sarah, to like any questions you have?
Yeah. So with Pocahontas, there are like some stories that I've read that like they made her convert. There are other stories that I read that she wanted to convert. Like, do you have the facts? Like, I'm still confused with.
Yeah, I mean, even if she wanted to be willing, in the Church of England, you cannot force a conversion. Yeah. All you can do in English church law is if somebody is unwilling to convert, you can remove them from England. Basically like citizenship here, right? So for what was asked of her, she has to not only agree that she wants to become an English citizen, but because she is illiterate, she's going to have to learn how to read, because Whitaker will not accept her conversion if she can't prove reading and she can't prove comprehension of scripture.
Jeez.
So and keep in mind, the reasons behind her being with the English are all twisted. They're all twisted up. Her father doesn't really want her back. She had done things to her father. Relationship is poor. He is not really enchanted with her return. So obviously he's using her as some type of leverage with the English. And in 1614, the English answer one of his communications to them, which was, if you want to finish the ransom or exchange for my daughter, you must come see me in my capital and we'll talk about it.
How old was she?
15.
Oh, geez.
And let me also, for your listeners, she's already been married since she was 13 to a native named Kokoa.
Oh my God.
So I want you to keep this a timeline. She's friends with John Smith, 11 to 12. She's in trouble with her father going on 13. She's married to a Patawomac at 13. 14 years old goes by. At 15 years old, she is taken prisoner by Captain Samuel Argall because the Patawomacs, who she was married to, thought they wanted to keep the trade going with him, with the English, more than keeping her as the wife to one of their warriors. So they gave her to Captain Argall, who takes her to Jamestown. And that is the world she's living in at 15 years old. And eventually, when the English send word to him, we have your daughter, here's what we want back for her. He could have given the English everything they asked for, but he chose not to. Instead, he sent a message to them that says, essentially, well, hold on to my daughter till you come see me someday, and then we'll talk about it. So that's when we think Dale takes responsibility for her imprisonment and brings her to Henricus for instruction with Reverend Whitaker.
Dang.
That doesn't sound
That's
like
intense.
Yeah. I mean, if I wrote that out for a Disney script, they wouldn't even look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, they have this idea. People have this idea in their heads of like this like romance between Pocahontas and John Smith, but yeah, no, that's not how it was.
Oh my God.
But married at 13, that's pretty crazy.
That's
But I guess back then
intense.
it's like, it's just how they did things before,
Well, yeah,
the
everybody
tribes.
asked me why that was. Is that common at 13? I'm like, well, it wasn't uncommon. It just wasn't that common, right? So what you have to do is you have to look at it and go, why did she marry a Patawomac? And there's only one guy who gives us a bit of an answer for that, and that's Captain John Smith. Smith had wrote the 2 episodes that Pocahontas did that made her father dislike the actions of his daughter to the point where she was committing crimes against the Powhatan people. The first one was she came to John Smith in the middle of the night telling him of an Indian attack on his English people. And she said with tears in her eyes to Smith, if my father find out I told you, he would have me killed. And so Pocahontas is constantly dealing with the loyalty stress of my friend John Smith, my people, the Powhatans. And I think it burned her a few times. And the second time from John Smith's writings was apparently one night she went into her father's bedchambers where an English captive named Henry Spellman who was a teenage boy. And Powhatan was keeping him as a prisoner because that boy had lived with the tribe so long that he was a fluent Algonquian speaker and could be Powhatan's Google, right? Powhatan had an English captive that he could speak to fluently without a translator. So Pocahontas went in one night and said to Spellman, let's go. I'm going to get you out of here. And she took him 2 days north of the Patawomacs, which was the neutral spot. And Powhatan was livid, sent out war parties looking for him. And next thing we know, she's married to the Patawomacs, and Henry Spellman is back at Jamestown. So the Patawomacs didn't give Spellman back to Powhatan, nor did they give up Pocahontas. So what I theorize, which makes the most sense, is that to smooth things over between the Potawatomi and Powhatan, that he said to them, "You're going to keep my daughter." And they're like, "Well, we'll marry her to one of our guys and we'll call it even." Now, what other reasons? I don't know. That's probably the reason. So I think Powhatan at that point washed his hands of his daughter. And next thing you know, she shows up again as a captive with the English. And he's just like, I don't necessarily want her back. And that's where she winds up with Henricus, 9 months, living with Reverend Whitaker, studying Christianity under the care of Dale. And at the end of that, we know what happens.
So Howie was wondering if Pocahontas was considered to not be attractive.
I mean, she's probably not. I mean, she's tattooed. Her face is tattooed, right? I mean, all that stuff's common to teenage girl Powhatans. I don't think John Rolfe would have found her. His words say exactly this. He says, I could have any woman I so wish, quote, more pleasing to the eye. That's his words.
Jesus Christ, she's a 15-year-old kid. That's so sad.
Right. But, in Rolfe's own writings, he says he does love her and he is marrying her for the goodness of all communities. But, when he rolls over on his honeymoon night to a candle and she's got, a turtle tattooed to her cheek, she's got these lines on her forehead tattooed into her scalp. She's got lines down her chin. She's maybe has a fish across her cheek. I mean, that can't be that attractive to a 17th century Englishman.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there are a lot of like native tribes like Samoans and stuff like that who do the natural tattoos, and it's a form of like a religion or, accomplishments and stuff like that. And it's just like you said, people who come from England who aren't used to seeing stuff like that, it could be a shock.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. I mean, John Rolfe's letter to Dale, which anyone can read anywhere online, he goes into 7 pages of why he should marry her and is writing to Dale to see if he could marry her. And now this comes back to an event that most historians ignore, most people never heard of. Sir Thomas Dale, who he's got balls the size of beach balls. I'm sorry. Does there anybody who's minors watching this? I'm sorry. Dale answers Powhatan 9 months later. Dale basically puts 150 men in armor on his ship, Pocahontas on his ship, John Rolfe on a ship. They're all on a ship. And where are they sailing? To Powhatan's capital. And Powhatan asked the English, if you want to finish this talk for my daughter, come see me. Well, Dale's like, okay. And here he comes. I want you to imagine this is the rebels' little tiny Air Force attacking the Death Star. Right? I want you to picture this now. Dale's little army is now going to go up against the Powhatan capital and try to be intimidated. So when Dale's guys eventually get up to Weramacomicko, which is the capital, there's several hundred Powhatan bowmen waiting in front of Dale's men. Now, there's going to be a pretty epic battle, and it's going to be pretty bloody. And who do you think says to Dale, I want to go talk to my daddy? Who do you think it is? Take a wild guess. Pocahontas. All right. So she wants to talk to her father. Her father sends word back to Dale's ship. I do not want to talk to you. So that's the last communication she'll ever directly receive from her father.
Jeez, that's so sad.
Now, in all deference on this, here comes Pocahontas' brothers. They come to Dale's ship they go on the ship and they talk to Pocahontas. So now Pocahontas is talking to her brothers on Dale's ship. John Rolfe, this other guy we seem to heard of, he is on shore with one of the young translators. He is meeting with Powhatan's emissary. Now, I want you to keep a scorecard here, right? Pocahontas is talking to her brothers on board the ship. John Rolfe is talking to somebody on shore. Exactly 1 month later, take a guess who's married.
Jeez.
John Rolfe and Pocahontas.
Yeah.
So take a giant guess with all those people talking. Take a wild guess who you think the idea of marriage to the English was. From who?
Her father.
Her father. Powhatan wants to give the English his daughter. Now, people go, wait a minute. Isn't she married to Cocoam? The answer is yes. But because the Powhatan leadership all practice polygamy anyway, it's not a big deal. And certainly, if she's going to marry somebody to give her father a greater deal in their situation of life with the English, he's going to give her up to the English. And 1 month later, as Dale will write, they are married in the church. So yeah.
So the other tribe, I forgot the name. Were they all under the Confederacy of the Powhatan Indians? Like when she took the guy from her father and went to the other tribe. Was they still under the Confederacy of Powhatan, or is this a whole nother tribe?
You mean the Potawatomis, right?
Yeah.
The Potawatomis there's some of the tribes in Virginia around Powhatan are what we might call sort of neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Not fully members of the club. Let's say that. So the Potawatomis, sorry, I'm moving here. So if I make anybody sick, I apologize. Moving. It's gonna be dark for 1 second. Dark. I'm still here. Here.
We see you.
All right, moving. All right, here I am. All right, can you see me?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, yeah, now you're in my kitchen. This is exciting.
Nice. Taking the tour over here.
We're doing a house tour while learning history.
That's right. Yeah, so it's really interesting because when we're looking at Dale, Dale didn't make the.
So stupid.
Are you all right?
Yeah, I was reading Howie's comment. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah. It's funny with this because every time I'm on site or I'm anywhere speaking and I'm trying to get this part of the story, I never know where to end. I don't ever know. Oh, let me get my screen better here. I feel like I'm all right. I never know exactly where to end this. Do you end it with the marriage? Do you end it with Pocahontas dying in England? Do you end this with the attacks of 1622? Do you end this in the later 17th century when Kosciuszko signs the last treaty with the English? And I don't know. I don't know where this ends. All I can tell you is that if the marriage does not happen, you do not have the English staying in Virginia because the Virginia Company of London is financially failing. And so that has to be considered in the storyline. So when the English get this happenstance, which is Powhatan offering his daughter to them, and the marriage happens, it now makes an alliance between the two cultures. That is the same alliance as any alliance in the history of mankind. You and I are partners now, and if we are going to be here together, we're mutually going to defend each other, and we are going to have all the benefits that come with an alliance. And that will last as long as Powhatan is around or the people who are married are around. And that is part of the problem with this story, is that everybody winds up dying.
It doesn't last very long.
Correct.
How
Yeah.
how did Pocahontas die? I don't know.
I think she died of the bloody flux on board the ship coming back to England.
Jeez.
So if you don't know what bloody flux is, it's viral dysentery.
Ooh, that's not
Oh my
a good way
God.
to go.
Correct.
I mean, like
That is not a good way to go.
that's so crazy. Like, how old was she? Was it
21.
like later on in life
21.
when she died?
21.
She was 21. Jesus.
She had been through so much. She led a life. I mean, that is just crazy. And I
So
think
sad.
trying to end it with the 1620. There's so much to talk about with the 1622 massacre that we could be on the show for another hour and a half just talking about that.
Good. I mean, one of the things with Pocahontas in this this moment where she's married to Rolfe and she has a son Thomas, right? Reverend Whitaker in his letters, he points out something that's really interesting about him believing the English and the Indians should be one and the same, right?
Hmm.
And I ask everybody, what do you know is Pocahontas's new English name? What's the answer?
Rebecca.
Rebecca. All right. So if you take a look at Whitaker guiding her into this Rebecca name, right? Rebecca Rolfe. I don't know how many biblical readers are in the crowd tonight, but if you go into Genesis and you go 40 pages in, you're going to get yourself into the story of Rebecca. And when you get into the story of Rebecca in Genesis, you're starting to read about a story where Rebecca will be pulled from her family to go across the desert to the other tribe, marry Isaac, and they create a new bloodline. That bloodline starts that testament of the Bible. What I believe is that Whitaker saw Pocahontas and her marriage to an Englishman as creating a new bloodline for a new book that has not been written yet. And the son Thomas will become the new bloodline emerging with both Indian and English blood. And I always ask people, how common do you think interracial marriages were in England 400 years ago?
That's crazy. Like, not very common at all.
Right.
Howie wants to know, was Pocahontas in Henricus during the massacre?
No, she's not around. No, she dies in March 21st, 1617. She dies in Gravesend, England. So when you look at the attacks of 1622, she's not around. In fact, nobody's around. And John Rolfe, who is the last to be around, he vanishes from Virginia soil on March 22nd, 1622.
Oh my God. Where did he get what happened to him?
He signs his will about 2 weeks before, says that he's of ill health. And when March 22nd, 1622 happens, there's 347 English killed in the colony that day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Within a year, they have a list of the dead, all those people's names, right? All the three, including a woman called Goodwife Redhead, are all on the list.
Good wife, Redhead. Yeah.
John Rolfe, the most prominent colonist in Virginia, is not on the list of the dead. So obviously, they did not find his grave. Well, John Rolfe doesn't show up in Ireland or England or Wales or Scotland or anywhere in the world after 1622. So he vanishes. And the question that comes up is, how? And my most prevailing theory, I think makes sense. And I could be wrong. It's been done in other times we know about. So in this case, it probably was what happened. John Rolfe is very evangelical, very religious, right? Hence why he marries Pocahontas and et cetera, et cetera. So if John Rolfe is a fervent Christian, but he's married to the Indians, which he is, he's a son-in-law of Powhatan. If he dies, what will the Indians want to do with him and his body?
Bury it or burn it.
Bury him with their people. If he gets buried with the Indians, what kind of burial doesn't he get?
Christian.
A Christian.
Which means what happens to his soul?
Doesn't go to heaven.
Doesn't go.
Goes to hell.
So I think what happened is John Rolfe pulled an old-timey thing that we find in America years after this. People feared getting taken by the Indians out of graves. And I think what John Rolfe did, whether he was legitimately dying of ill health or whether he might have, because they kind of knew that there was a thing that was going to happen, he might have told his closest friends, whatever happens to me, you bury me, and by God, you better not mark that grave.
I mean, it's good to be prepared. That's
Like,
wow. And there's, like
could
I
that
said,
have happened? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Could that have happened, or could he have been taken? What's it called? I just lost.
Capture
what's that
prisoner.
word? Yeah, prisoner by one of the tribes, or the tribe that was attacking them.
Right. Yeah. So if he was taken prisoner and the English accounted for every single colonist, every single one, and that got on an official report back to England, again, John Rolfe would not slip through the cracks. If he was taken, and we know the list of like the approximately 30 prisoners taken that day, most of which a year later were returned, he would have shown up on that report.
Okay, that's crazy. Wow.
Oh,
So everybody's basically dead. Pocahontas dies in 1617 of the bloody flux. Reverend Whitaker accidentally drowns in the James River in 1617. Powhatan dies in 1618. So Thomas Dale's off the coast of India. He dies of the bloody flux before he gets back to Virginia. And then John Rolfe, the last person involved in the piece, he just happens to die days before, let's say, possibly, the bloodiest attack in Anglo-Powhatan America.
That's great.
It's a crazy story. I couldn't even try to make that up.
it's history is so interesting when you have someone like you telling it, and we're able to learn about this whole experience, and it shows just like all the stuff that had to happen for us to be here doing this, what we're doing today. And I know it's past your bedtime, and I could talk to you for another hour or so, but
I just want to make sure that 1 second. I was trying to make sure my wife was on the couch. I think she moved into the bedroom now, so I think we're good. One of the things I wanted to finish on, if we had time.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's interesting because we get to this March 22nd, 1622 massacre, right? And for years, when I worked at Jamestown, you would hear the name, the 1622 massacre, and they, over the years, they tried to soft pedal it a bit. It would be called the Fatal Day, and maybe it was a massacre. I mean, if you took out 1/3 to 1/4 of the population at that time, it might be a massacre. If you take out 1/3 of the population of the United States today, would you consider that a massacre? So when you look at how the English kind of looked at that day, all right, it was a bad day. What I like to kind of move into is this idea that sorry, I thought I saw a ghost, but it's really my wife. She's wearing a white sweater in a dark room. So when we're looking at that very famous March 22nd event, and you ask the question, why would Opie Kankanu, the new leader of the Indians, why would he just kill 347 people? And I get back to the question of how long was the attack, right? the attack was one day, right? I mean, when you say it in passing, you don't even think about it. It was one day. Well, if Opie Canoe wanted to get rid of the English and he killed 347 in one day, why didn't he just have his warriors attack the English for like 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks? Straight attacks. Get rid of all of the English.
Yeah, keep doing
Right.
it. Just finish the job.
Why just one day?
Right. What we infer from that is that Opie Canoe was not trying to get rid of the English. He was simply sending them a bloody message, right? And that message is an obvious one when you look at the years, the interval since Pocahontas' death, right? What did the English bring here the 3 years after Pocahontas' death? They brought 700 to 800 contract brides for the planters here. I want you to imagine an infusion of 700 plus English women to marry English planters here, right? Just think about that. And I want you to, for the first time, if you are the Indians and you've been dealing with a small population of Englishmen, mostly living in forts, when you start to have English families pop up, I ask people, what do you think every English boy wants in his future as an English young man? What's he want to grow up to be? He won't be a king because he doesn't have the bloodline. He won't be a noble or a lord. So what do most yeoman family children boys want to be?
A farmer or an Indian fighter?
Well, what's the first thing they want if they want money?
Soldier.
No, that doesn't make you a lot of money. You got to be a farmer.
Farmer, yeah.
Right? Today, we're not used to farmers making money.
And they need land to farm.
They need land, right? So I want you to imagine 700 women coming to the colony. How many boys are they going to have? How many properties are they going to want? And what problem is that going to cause with the tribes? What does every Powhatan boy grow up to want to be? A warrior.
Warrior.
And a hunter. So all they want is to defend land, and they want to hunt on land. They don't want to farm the land. So what you're having now is two polar opposite upbringings, which means you're going to have a culture clash. So that's something that the English are not trying to hurt the Indians. They're just raising their people the way they raise their people. But it puts them in conflict with the Indians. The next thing, besides the women, is going to be the College of Henricus. Chartered in 1618, 1619, it will be designed for native boys to come and follow in Pocahontas' footsteps of conversion and bringing
I've heard of that.
back to the tribes. And the leader of that College of Henricus is going to communicate to Opie Canoe that we want to make all your people Christians.
Jesus.
Well,
I'm sure that went over well with him.
You're not taking the soft pedal kind of Reverend Whitaker approach, which is gradual.
Yeah.
He basically communicates that this is the way we want you to all go. And that, I know you fear the sun doing bad things to your crops. Well, you're going to have to all stop praying to the sun. So I think that's going to be a problem. Right?
We know better than you type of thing.
Right. So now what we have is women, they're a problem. We have the college idea, a problem, because the Indians might not want to give up their nature religion, right?
Yeah, like not at all.
So now what you have is another thing. You guys have all heard of the first legislative assembly in the New World, 1619, right? Yay.
Yeah.
Well, you have burgesses chosen from all their communities to come and make decisions for the future of Virginia. Take a guess who was not invited to make those decisions as well.
Opie Canoe.
No Indian official designation or delegation will be put to the General Assembly. So now the decisions for Virginia will purely be Anglo decisions, right? All right, so now you have
That's so stupid.
Women coming and having babies. The English aren't trying to hurt anybody. That's just what they're doing. They're trying to make a college to help educate the Indians and help them out. But, maybe that's not what everybody wants. Then you have this new government that the English are like, well, we're just trying to, make it a better decision here and there for our people here. But they just didn't involve the Indians on that. So that's another insult. So what you have is you have the English getting what we might call too big for their breeches.
Mm-hmm.
And Opechancanough, by 1622, has to make a decision. What am I going to do with the English? His people are already immersed in the trade and cooperation with the English, and they know that they get the great goods from the English, so they don't want to get rid of the English. But how do you control the English?
By fear.
By fear. That's it, man. You send your warriors to every one of their communities, kill anybody there that's on a hit list, and that's going to put them in their place. Mm-hmm. And when I point out that there was 65 women and children of all ages down to babies killed that day, it is not common for Powhatan warriors to go and kill women and babies. That means somebody had to order that. And why would you?
So sad.
It is. And why would you kill women and children in your messaging?
So they can't reproduce?
This is a part of the problem. You're having women come here, they're having babies, and those babies are eventually going to be taking over our land. That's right.
Yeah. And they didn't realize that this was just the beginning of, that it wasn't going to stop the English from coming. I guess they thought maybe if we kind of call the situation and, maybe they won't come. Maybe they'll be like, all right, we have enough. And then we'll just have a little plot of land right here. We're not going to try to go farther.
Yeah.
It's Opechancanough doing what we might call nipping it in the bud.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand why, the British people couldn't share. You came here to their land. Obviously, they were there before you. What was the problem? Why can't they share their land? Why do they automatically have to just say, well, this is my land now, so go fuck off?
Yeah, the English are trying to do that, right? The English are, they're the various governors that are here. They're going to do that, and they're going to keep trying to do that. The problem is European growth. It's like if you live in Chesterfield County today, right? Modern day where I live. There is nobody here who finds the growth of development acceptable. Nobody. It's just 500 new townhomes, 300 new houses, 5 new developments, and everybody's like, oh my God, why are we building so many freaking houses in this neck of the woods? And the English in this time period are like, there's plenty of room. There's plenty of room. And Powhatan, to his credit, he offered the English a complete landscape between their settlements and most of his villages. After the marriage of Pocahontas, he gave the English half of the modern day peninsula of what we know east of Richmond as hunting ground for the English. He's like, here you go.
Generous.
So what we look at in this is that everybody, the Powhatans and the English, are just trying to live like they normally live. But if you are trying to put a triangle into a square block hole, it might not fit. So I think what you have is both sides tried to be diplomatic. Both sides often met in the middle. I think in these cases, what you have is sometimes you're just going to have bloodshed, just like it happens everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And I give credit to the Powhatan leadership down the road and the English leadership who, think about this, each side could have massacred to the point of extinction the other side. And both sides chose not to over about 50 to 70 years. And when you get down to that last treaty of Middle Plantation between the Powhatans and the English, Governor Berkeley said, look, I'm going to protect your reservation which is going to be Pamunkey Mattaponi land, and I'm going to make sure my people do not go on there, and you're going to have that forever. The Chickahominy, same deal. And today, you still find Powhatan tribes in Virginia. If you can say, go to other parts of this country and say, hey, are all the tribes still around? What's the answer?
No.
No.
Yeah.
The thing is interestingly unique about Eastern Virginia, and that despite the bloodshed, both cultures are still here together.
I just goes to show, man, that the fact that they showed such restraint, and of course they fought, but still it showed great forethought, and we are very lucky that they had such restraint.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I mean, everyone asked me about Opie Camp. I'm like, well, yeah, he kind of did a lot of bloodshed, but I think he showed restraint. Instead of killing, 700, 800 people, he didn't. I always have to caveat this, Ryan and folks. I always have to say, I know this seems really bad with some of the things the English did and some of the things the Indians did. But if you compare it to other things in other parts of history, it's actually not as bad as other places in history. So
if using the word massacre, it just has that, you hear the word, you have this connotation. They're like hundreds and hundreds of people being killed. But you put it into perspective, like, yeah, there are a lot of people that were killed that day, but it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's true. It's true. And I don't even, as long as I've been doing this, I always tell people, I'm like, I don't know everything. I don't know the whole story on this. We have part of the story. But I can tell you what you see in front of you in 2024 Virginia. You can go to journey 100 miles from Richmond, and you can be probably in a 12 to 15 tribal centers or reservations of Native people. We still have that resource, and we still have that as a part of our legacy.
Wow. Well, this was an amazing story, and I am so glad that you were able to share that with us. Like I said before, I'm not sure. I mean, they may have glossed over it in history classes and stuff, but to know the intricacies of the relationships between the English and the natives here, kind of person Thomas Dale was. Mm-hmm. I do have one more question, because I was going to ask it earlier, but I didn't get a chance to. What was the relationship between Thomas Dale and Alexander Whitaker? Because it seems like Alexander Whitaker was more of a was he as tough as Thomas Dale? What was their relationship like?
Yeah, I would call it symbiotic. Look at it like this, right? Whitaker is sent here because somebody obviously feels that the colonists are losing their godliness, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does Dale do in his edited martial laws of Virginia? He has dozens of religious codes in there, right? Ones that wouldn't fly in England. And some of those are, Reverend Whitaker has to say, look, if we're getting our godliness back into us, we're going to have that across the full spectrum of leadership. And Dale makes it so that if you are not attending sermons, not praying, not purposely worshiping God, you're going to have a lot of problems. And if you're obviously a big problem and you don't want godliness, well, under my care, you're going to die. Right?
Yeah.
So Whitaker, he's probably somewhere in that, basically saying, well, it's the same thing in our history where we catch witches, we do bad things to witches. If there's bad people here, we have to get rid of them.
The ends justify the means type of deal. Like,
right. So
yeah.
I think Dale bore that on his shoulders, and I think Whitaker bore the branding, the messaging to the intellectuals of England that, despite whatever problems we might be happening, don't blame it on the Indians. Don't blame it on the Indians. They're not our biggest problem. Our biggest problem is ourselves not keeping with the book that we're learning in church. And once we get that straight, and once we get the perspective straight, we can treat each other better, and we can treat the Indians better and live in peace. That's Whitaker's message. And I think Dale and Whitaker both saw their own people who were not keeping themselves up as more of the problem.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, man, I definitely appreciate you coming on. I know it's way past your bedtime. This is making me want to come out there, and I'd love to bring Sarah out there and bring Angie out there. We love to get out there and investigate out, and just since after learning all this stuff, it gets me excited about coming back out to the park. And I was just there Saturday.
Yeah.
Right.
I've never been, and I want to go so bad.
Well, Henricus Park is located in Chester, Virginia, right? Henricus Historical Park. It is definitely a awesome location. It is a living history museum. John is the historical interpretation supervisor. That's a tongue twister right there. Are you guys open now, like all week, or is it just the weekends?
Yeah, Wednesday through Sunday, 10 to 5. And you guys can all see the details on henricus.org. It's easy to find. When you're there, it'll give you a vibe. It'll give you a vibe.
Yeah.
I'm excited to go out there and feel.
Yeah. And knowing all this stuff that we know now, it's going to be even more fun to go out there and check it out.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So, John, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. I'd definitely love to have you back on and talk about the everyday life of like the people, the colonists or the settlers. What they call? I guess they're colonists, right? What they consider colonists or settlers?
They never use the word settlers. Yeah, they just use the word colonist. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, man, I appreciate it. I'll let you go so you can get some sleep. I know you got a busy day tomorrow, and we'll talk soon about coming out there to investigate.
Yeah, I'll call you maybe, I think on Friday. I have some time, so I'll give you a call about some investigations.
Okay. Yeah, and if you guys, anybody has any questions and message, just send it to me either through IM or just get a hold of me on site. Whatever you guys want to do, I love answering questions. Okay.
And how can people find your book? Where do people, if they want to
because
learn more about the Pocahontas?
I was being fairly generous in my donation of the book to the foundation. The foundation only sells things through the gift shop, so that's where you can get it. If I didn't do that, you can have me get it out of my trunk and mail it to you, but I can't do that right now. So go to Henricus and get one, or you can just call them and put in a reservation and an order for one. Okay.
Perfect. Awesome, man. Thank you so much. And we'll talk soon.
All right, gangs. Thanks, everybody.
All right, man. Have a good night.
Bye, buddy.
All right.
Bye. Well, that was fun. I really enjoyed that conversation. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's so much stuff we don't know about the history of our country and stuff. And it's good to have a resource like him to talk about and stuff.
I always love learning new things. Like I wouldn't say a history buff because I don't know about history, but I love learning about history. So
it's fun when you learn, when you can talk to someone and interact with them and ask questions. And when someone's a good storyteller, like John is, that makes it even more interesting and fun.
Yeah.
Next week, we have got Hidden in the Shadows Paranormal, your first guest you booked.
I'm so excited.
I'm excited for that. Although maybe I would have enjoyed Hidden in the Shower Paranormal a little bit more. But, we'll still have fun with them.
Listen, we need to make our own little paranormal parody.
That was so funny. I'm excited. But next week it'll be fun. Getting back into the ghost type thing. Another hour and a half show, man. We just keep talking.
I think we should just make our shows an hour and a half versus an hour, because I don't think an hour is long enough, and I think 2 hours is too long.
Well, I think the blog talk thing, when it says have a good show, or this is the end, goodbye, whatever she says. I can't remember what she says, but usually it's a good cutoff point for us. Oh, we better get off now. But honestly thought John was going to want to stop the show at an hour. And I'm glad he didn't, but because we learn more cool stuff.
I want to learn more. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was kind of surprised that happened. But yeah, next week, hidden in the shadows. You know how bad I want to say shower, but Hidden in the Shadows Paranormal.
It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough.
God, I hope I don't say that tomorrow on Tuesday night. We're not shower, it's shadows.
In our mind, it's just like there forever.
Yeah, they'll always be hidden in the showers paranormal to me. Yes. Oh man, so I am tired, and the hour and a half is a lot. So, guys, thank you so much for coming on for listening. Thank you for coming on the show, Sarah. Yeah. But everybody else, thank you guys for listening. We had a great turnout. We had 11 people in the chat, man. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was.
I'm excited. I'm excited for next week. Hidden in the Shadow Paranormal. Guys, don't forget to tune in. We'll be back here. Same freaking awesome time. Same freaking awesome channel. Sarah, we'll see you soon. Freaks. Yeah. We'll see you Tuesday night. Have a great night. Bye, guys.
Bye.